A manufacturing engineer named Christopher Dunn walked into a tunnel beneath the Egyptian desert and brought something no archaeologist had thought to bring: a precision, straight edge. What he measured, or what he says he measured, was flatness in granite that he described as rivaling the output of modern precision grinding equipment. The box weighs approximately 70 tons. It's made from Aswan granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth. The nearest quarry is more than 800 kilometers south, and it's not alone. There are 24 of them. Most were found empty. One was opened after 3,000 years, with its wax seals still intact, also empty. Saqqara sits about 30 kilometers south of modern Cairo. Saqqara is one of the oldest continuously used burial grounds in the world, the kind of place where the layers go so deep that archaeologists are still finding sealed chambers they did not know existed. The step pyramid is what most people know. But beneath the plateau, carved through solid limestone bedrock, runs a tunnel system that has no proper parallel anywhere in ancient Egypt. In 1850, a French archaeologist named Auguste Mariette was working in Egypt for the Louvre. Mariette had been reading Strabo, a Greek geographer who wrote around 20 BCE about a sphinx-lined avenue leading to something sacred near Memphis. Mariette found the avenue. It was buried under sand. He followed it. The tunnels opened up below him. What Mariette entered was a two-part complex. An older gallery, smaller and rougher, dates to roughly the reign of Amenhotep III, around 1390 BCE. A newer, larger gallery is attributed to Ramesses II, around 1250 BCE. The main gallery runs nearly 200 meters. The ceiling is 5 meters high. The walls are 3 meters wide, and cut into alcoves along both sides are the boxes. Here's the first problem. The tunnel is barely wider than the boxes themselves. Aswan granite is not easy to work with. It's harder than most metals you'd use to cut it. The ancient Egyptians worked it using tools made of copper and dolerite, a harder stone they used as a pounding implement, and likely quartz sand as an abrasive. This process works. You can achieve smooth, impressive results with enough time and skill. Each box stands roughly 2.3 meters tall and 3.7 meters long. Combined with the lid, the total weight of each assembly has been estimated at between 70 and 100 tons. The lids alone are approximately 27 tons each. The granite came from Aswan, over 800 kilometers away. The standard explanation involves Nile barges for transport, then wooden sledges and rollers across land. For comparable stones, obelisks, and pyramid casing blocks, this method is documented and plausible. But obelisks didn't have to fit through a tunnel. The current tunnel entrance is too narrow to admit the boxes without exact alignment, and in some configurations appears too tight for the boxes at all, which means one of three things. The boxes went in before the roof was completed, the entrance was once wider and was later modified, or there were access shafts that no longer exist. Every one of those options has a problem. None of them has been definitively resolved. Christopher Dunn is not a fringe theorist. He spent decades as a manufacturing engineer in the aerospace and precision machining industries, the kind of work where a surface that's off by 1,000th of an inch is a defect, not a rounding error. When he visited the Serapeum, he brought a machinist's straight edge and pressed it against the interior walls of the boxes. What he found, or what he reports finding, was flatness that he said was comparable to what a modern surface grinder would produce. This matters for a specific reason. Flatness at that scale in granite isn't just about aesthetics. It requires removing material evenly across a large area, without leaving ridges, without overcutting corners, and without any single pass taking too much. It requires a process, not just patience. Mainstream Egyptologists respond that Egyptian craftsmen had thousands of years of accumulated stone working skill, and that we consistently underestimate what hand tools and abrasives can achieve over long timescales. That's a reasonable argument. But it's worth noting that no one has actually replicated these surfaces using only ancient tools. The experiment has not been done. The mainstream position requires a capability that has not been demonstrated. The alternative position requires a technology that has not been identified. We're arguing between two things that have not been proven. The official explanation for the Serapeum is well documented in one sense. The ancient Egyptians considered it a burial complex for the Apis bulls. The Apis bull was one of the most sacred animals in Egyptian religion. It was believed to be the living embodiment of the god Ptah. Upon death, it merged with Osiris to become Osiris Apis, from which the Greek name Serapeum derives. When an Apis bull died, it received a royal funeral. The mummification process was elaborate. These were not small animals. Mariette found 28 inscribed steles in the Lesser Gallery. These were funerary records, listing dates, names of pharaohs, and references to specific Apis bull burials. Some of the Lesser Gallery boxes contained fragments of mummified remains. The record is real, but it applies to the Lesser Gallery. In the main gallery, where the massive boxes are, the situation is different. Nearly all 24 boxes were found empty, no mummies, no animal remains, no offerings, no inscriptions carved on the boxes themselves. One exception. One box in the main gallery was found with its original wax seals intact, undisturbed. Mariette documented this carefully. He recorded the seals. He opened it. The interior was empty. 3,000 years of sealed preservation. Nothing to preserve. That box either never held anything or held something that left no trace. Both possibilities require an explanation that has not been given. Here is something that does not get discussed in mainstream coverage. The boxes in the main gallery are not optimally sized for a bull mummy. A fully mummified Apis bull, a large animal wrapped in linen and coated in resin, would be roughly horizontal, wide, and low slung. You would want a container that accommodates its width and length while minimizing wasted depth. The boxes in the main gallery are deep, tall. The interior dimensions run roughly 2 meters deep. If you were designing a container specifically to hold a bull mummy, you would probably not design it this way. This does not prove the boxes had a different original purpose, but it raises a question that mainstream accounts tend to step around. Were the boxes designed for the bulls? Or were the bulls placed into boxes that already existed? There is a version of Egyptian history where the Serapeum is a much older structure, partially repurposed by New Kingdom priests who needed a sacred space for Apis burials. That version is not proven, but it is also not disproven. Ramesses II was one of the most prolific self-promoters in the ancient world. He built Abu Simbel. He built the Ramesseum. He carved his name over other pharaohs' monuments and claimed their victories as his own. He erected more statues and obelisks than any other Egyptian ruler. He reigned for 66 years and spent most of them making sure nobody would forget it. The main gallery of the Serapeum is attributed to his reign. There is not a single inscription by Ramesses II anywhere in the main gallery. No cartouche. No dedicatory text. No record of construction. Nothing that says, "I built this." For any pharaoh, that would be unusual. For Ramesses II specifically, it borders on inexplicable. One interpretation is that the gallery was so sacred that to carve one's name in it would have been inappropriate. Some ancient spaces were left deliberately unadorned. Another interpretation is that Ramesses II did not build it, he simply used it. If the main gallery predates Ramesses II, if it was already there when his priests began using it for Apis burials, then the attribution falls apart. And the question of who built it and when opens entirely. Let us state this plainly. The boxes are approximately 3.8 meters long and 2.3 meters wide. The tunnel, at various points, narrows to clearances that make lateral movement of the boxes very difficult or impossible using any documented ancient technique. If the boxes were placed in the tunnel before the roof was built, the construction sequence becomes extraordinarily complex. Each alcove would need to be cut, the box positioned, and then the ceiling constructed above it, with workers managing both tasks simultaneously across a 200-meter tunnel. If the entrance was once wider, where is the evidence of that modification? Mariette's excavation notes describe areas of deliberate debris packing inside the tunnels, suggesting intentional closures. But no evidence of a widened entrance has been documented. If vertical shafts were used for lowering the boxes, no such shafts have been found. Mariette and subsequent archaeologists have mapped the area extensively. There is a simple version of this problem. We just have not found the answer yet. Absence of evidence for a shaft is not evidence the shaft did not exist. But absence of evidence after 170 years of archaeological work at one of the most studied sites in Egypt is, at minimum, worth acknowledging. The installation question is unsolved, not that it is complicated. Unsolved. In 2020, Egyptian archaeologists discovered a sealed shaft at Saqqara containing over 100 intact coffins, untouched for 2,500 years. In 2022, another find followed, a cache of complete mummies, statues, amulets, and a sealed burial chamber that no one had entered since the late period. These were not in some remote, unstudied corner of the plateau. They were in the central, well-mapped area of Saqqara, the same zone that has been excavated continuously since the 19th century. Saqqara covers roughly 8 square kilometers. The tunnels, shafts, and subterranean chambers that have been mapped represent a fraction of what ground-penetrating radar surveys suggest is actually there. New finds keep appearing in places that were supposedly already studied, which means the current map of the Serapeum's underground network may itself be incomplete. There may be access routes, chambers, and connections that have not been found, not because they do not exist, but because no one has looked in the right place yet. There are 2 camps, and it's worth being precise about what each one is actually claiming. Mainstream Egyptologists do not claim to have fully explained the logistics of box installation. What they argue is that the Serapeum was a bull burial complex, that the ancient Egyptians were capable of extraordinary precision stonework, and that alternative explanations, such as lost civilizations or ancient high technology, introduce far more problems than they solve without credible evidence. That's a defensible position. Alternative researchers, Dunn being the most technically credentialed, argue that the physical evidence of the boxes themselves, the precision of their surfaces, and the squareness of their corners is inconsistent with known ancient tools, and that the installation logistics are genuinely impossible using only the methods attributed to New Kingdom Egypt. That's also a defensible position. The frustrating part is that the mainstream argument sometimes becomes circular. We know these were bull coffins because this is a bull burial site, and we know it's a bull burial site because there are bull coffins. The steles in the lesser gallery support the function of the site. They don't fully explain the construction of the main gallery. The alternative argument sometimes overreaches. Precision flatness is evidence of lost technology, but it could also be evidence of craftsmanship we've underestimated. The honest position, which neither side fully embraces, is that several specific questions about the Serapeum remain genuinely open. Here's what the evidence actually supports. The Serapeum was used as a sacred burial site for the Apis bulls during the New Kingdom and into the late period. That is documented. The lesser gallery confirms it. The steles confirm it. Ancient sources confirm it. The main gallery contains boxes whose precision, logistics, and absence of inscriptions have not been fully explained by either the mainstream or the alternative accounts. One box was sealed with ancient wax, untouched for approximately 3,000 years, and found empty. No one has explained what that means. Auguste Mariette, the man who found all of this, spent years at Saqqara. He was a committed archaeologist, careful with his records. In his own writings, he described the experience of standing in those tunnels as producing something he found difficult to put into words. Not mystical, not supernatural, just a feeling that the account he'd been given didn't quite cover what he was looking at. If the ancient Egyptians built those boxes exactly as the record suggests, using copper tools, stone abrasives, and extraordinary accumulated skill, then we have massively underestimated what they were capable of. And that itself is a story worth telling. If those boxes were already there when the New Kingdom priests arrived, if they're older, from a period or a people we haven't identified, then we have a different problem entirely. Because the thing about Saqqara is that it's still being excavated, and every year something appears that wasn't supposed to be there. Whatever the Serapeum is, whatever it was originally for, it hasn't finished telling its story.